Okay, let's start with a question. How many of us went to business school when we started up in business?
I expect there won't be a particularly large show of hands.
No, and that's because most of us decided to go into business just doing something that we love, or maybe something that we're really good at doing.
It's usually a little way down the line that we start to reflect on not actually gaining a grounding in the useful things like sales, marketing, finance and operations.
Yeah, and that's when it all starts to feel, well, a bit difficult.
I'm Nicky. I've been running businesses since 2004, and I'm the founder of the Growth Community, which is a place where businesses come to network and support each other's business success.
And I'm James, and I started my business back in 2020, helping businesses, brands and organisations to unlock the power of podcasting, basically using audio as a way to market and grow their business.
Well, in our line of work, we both meet a lot of businesses and we're constantly learning new things from being around them. Every day literally is a business school day.
So we thought, why not grab some of this good stuff and turn it into a podcast? So please take your seats. Class is about to start.
Welcome back, class. We've got a really important topic today. We felt like we couldn't do this podcast in season 3 without touching on the big thing that everyone's talking about at the moment, which is AI. And we felt like we wanted to talk about it. We don't want to get too bogged down in it, but we really wanted to focus on things that are actually really proactive for businesses and to really explore this topic because, we can't get away from it. It is happening, but, how should we be using it? So we're really, really excited to have Diane with us today. So Diane, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you for having me, yes. I'm Diane Hall of Evolved3 CIC, and it's a business that has sort of a lot of arms. One of them is AI, and the angle as such that we do our training on is sort of on the way it underpins humans in the workforce, as it should do, rather than replace them, which is a fear that we'll probably come on to later on.
Yes.
But very much about how AI supplements the human workforce, things to maybe have in consideration. And then the other half of the business is to enforce critical thinking in teams, to stop the silo thinking and the group thinking, and to put the creativity and innovation back into the humans whilst the AI is doing the autonomous stuff.
Sounds like perfection.
Yeah, sounds good. There aren't many more polarising topics of conversation at the moment other than AI. Like if you're at a dinner party and you want to get people talking, just drop in, either Brexit, immigration or AI, and you'll have a food fight or possibly a fight in the car park within 5 minutes, because it is one of those things. Everyone tends to they've sort of made their mind up, haven't they, where they stand on it, and it tends to be either it's a good thing, it's a terrible thing, or, well, it's a bit of both. People are either end or bang in the middle. And so I'm really glad that we're talking about it and covering it today, because it just needs a bit of common sense thrown into the equation. So hopefully that's what we can do today.
Well, we'll definitely try, won't we?
I think small business owners, because they've got the entrepreneurial mindset and they're into growth and developing and learning.
A new shiny object.
Yeah, that as well, yeah. I think probably they're, I don't want to say winning, but they're grasping it and taking it. And then maybe the employees of bigger companies are people that maybe have been told or directed to use it and they're not that keen, or they don't really see the need for it. You can understand why they'd maybe come at it with a different viewpoint, as if like, why do I have to? I was fine in my job. Is it actually going to take my job? That sort of thing. So I can understand the polarised views, and it's maybe just, as you say, it's not going to go away at all. It's not going to go back in Pandora's box. So it's just finding a way for everybody to.
I kind of compare this to, I'm going to show my age, but, I was working in marketing at the time when the internet happened. And I can remember a lot of my clients going, so this web thing, do you think it's going to be a thing we need to do? Or do you think it's just going to be a bit of a fad? And, we were kind of sitting down and going, it's not a fad. This is happening. You do need to think about it. But you need to think about it in terms of what you as a business need to do right now. And I think it's the same conversation with AI. You know, it is happening. It isn't a fad. It isn't going away. But equally, running down the road and building, you know, some, you know, like some people were saying, you know, let's go off and build this big, crazy, expensive website. For a lot of clients, they weren't ready for the big, crazy, expensive website. You know, it was about what web presence they needed. And I think it's the same conversation for what AI presence you need. And I think you also said something really important a minute ago, and it's my favourite thing, which is to ask why.
Yeah.
I you know, before you do anything, I always ask why. Why are we doing this? What benefit does it have to us? What benefit does it have to our clients? Because actually, that you know, the client engagement is, you know, that, and that customer experience is so important. How can AI help us to be better in business and support our, you know, our lifestyle and our business? Because, you know, it really can. Yeah. But I think, you know, what you said as well earlier, the human's still really important. Unless you're a really high volume business, mostly, and small businesses generally are not, we need to make sure that our USP is still there, that we are human, that we are providing the best customer experience that we can. Yeah. And we don't lose touch with those conversations, because we can't grow as businesses if we don't understand what our customers need.
Yeah, and AI can help with all that sort of thing. It's very good at being all the things that you might have outsourced as a small business owner. And I wouldn't say that it's better than doing that, but it can save a hell of a lot on costs, and it can help you be more creative, it can be more inventive, help you introduce new income streams as a small business owner. So it's got so much potential. I really can see why they're excited about it. For the medium-sized and especially the larger businesses, they have so much automation already. They already have processes and machines and, you know, departments that deal with one small aspect of the company. So AI to them, there's no doubt they're going to see it completely different. It's going to be something that will be great for efficiency, to cut waste, to speed things up. Yeah. But I can't imagine them using it in the same creative way that maybe small businesses will do. But that in itself is the beauty of AI. It's endless what you can achieve with it. And it is, as you say, knowing the why, knowing what you want to do with it, which is a human question, first of all, before you actually apply any AI. And I can imagine that the shiny ball thing that we said, that some businesses might be thinking, oh, I don't want to be left behind by AI because everybody's talking about it. It's everywhere. I go to all these networking things. There's all these workshops. I should be doing it. But until you know why and how you want to apply it and what you want to achieve, it's just going to mystify you, I would have thought. So,
and I mean, we had in season 1, we actually had a whole podcast on automation. And certainly one of the themes that came out of that was how important it is to have your systems and processes right in your business before you start automating or any of those sorts of things. So, and I think the same applies when you're going to look at doing AI. You know, I think it's just like you say, it's about having that common sense approach, really, isn't it? There is so many things going on at the moment. There's a lot of gung-ho behaviour, I also think, in the AI space at the moment.
I've seen that as well.
Some very gung-ho behaviour.
That's not new in business, though, is it?
No,
maybe not.
It's just another way that people can be
peacocking and showing off.
Reserved, can't they?
Yeah. But I think that leads to a question that I've got, really, which is, you know, this gung-ho behaviour is not being addressed necessarily with common sense, or actually even the knowledge that those people already know in terms of what the legal requirements are and things like that. So that was kind of a question that I had really around this, is how does AI fit into that landscape? Because as a business, we have a lot of regulatory requirements, there's a lot of legal stuff, there's a lot of ethical stuff.
Yeah.
You know, what do we need to be thinking about when it comes to AI in relation to those things? Because, you know, you've seen all kinds of horror stories in the press. I mean, I saw something recently, a lawyer had done his precedent work and taken it into court, and it wasn't right, and the judge had literally leathered him, you know, and I don't know what happened to him.
Really. He did not sort of,
you know,
his eyes and
to do his work.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not always accurate, is it?
Not at all, no. It's based on prediction, and same as anything, we could predict the outcome of a football match or the outcome of the lottery numbers, but it's not going to be absolutely 100% all the time. It's just based on patterns. Just as you imagine prediction, the predictive text that you had on your phones when you're making it. It's really just steps forward from that. It's working on the same thing based on sort of what's happened in the past, on what data's shown on data sets, and it's then putting forward what it thinks is the right thing. So if you asked it a question, if you said, how many dog-friendly restaurants are there in this part of Sheffield, for example, give me the top 10, but say there's only 8 answers. In real life, its remit is to fulfil your request. It's been asked for the 10 best ones. So it will give the first 8, probably they'll be absolutely bona fide and real. But the last 2 will sound real because they'll be based on the first 8 and they will sound as if they should be there in that list. But they most likely won't exist because there's only 8. So that you don't know what that question when you're asking it, what the real answers are, what the until you check your sources or you apply the common sense to what it's spitting out, you don't know where the ghosts are or the hallucinations. And that's the danger, as you say, that if people are sort of taking that information and putting it out there, that can be misinformation, especially when you think about healthcare and things like that, that can have really dangerous consequences. So, yeah, it's really important to have you sort of your brain switched on as you use it. Yes, it's going to take a lot of the legwork out of what you're doing, but also then make sure
you've got very big.
Exactly. Yeah. Make sure it's sound when you go forward and multiply with what it's giving you.
Yeah, I actually had an example of this recently. I was writing a blog and I was looking for a statistic, and so I thought, I wonder if this statistic actually exists. So I asked ChatGPT if that was a statistic, and it came back with this perfect statistic, and I was like, whoa. I was thinking
that seems too good to be true. Almost.
Yeah, because I wasn't even expecting anyone to have even investigated that information, if you know what I mean. The fact that there was this really cool statistic on it, I was like, So I went back to it and said, where did you get that from? And it went, oh, I'm really sorry. Actually, it's from this. And it showed me the actual source, which was not the same thing at all. Yeah. In fact, nowhere near, actually. But it tried to please me with a statistic that it thought it was going to make me happy. And it did make me happy for 30 seconds until I realised that it wasn't actually real. But I could have just taken that face value, zapped it out, and someone would have gone, where did you get that from? Yeah. And then I'd have been, oh, well, actually, it's not that at all. So, I asked ChatGPT, it was open the other day, and I was trying to sort out all the dates for the growth community. And I just went, could you just give me the bank holiday dates for 2026? It didn't.
Wow.
It gave me some random dates for some other year.
Because you'd think they'd be quite set. You wouldn't think there'd be much need to hallucinate them.
But I was sat there flicking through going, these aren't the right days. And it had given me the wrong dates. And I just thought, oh, wow.
Like Christmas Day on December 10th or...
Quite a bit. No,
that's a good idea. Let's do that. Yeah. Let's have 2.
It had given me the bank holiday dates, I think, for another year.
Right.
So it must have worked out the average year. I don't know what it had done, but it had given me the wrong dates because the dates didn't. They looked like the right dates, but they didn't tally it with the bank holiday Monday. Yeah. So
and it's not that unusual, is it? Because I get Google Overview is great, but it's wrong quite a lot of the time. And maybe 1 in 5 times it'll come back with something, and I'll be like, no. Once you read it, you realise it's telling you the answer to not quite what you asked. It's something else. You kind of go back to the point of, we call it AI. It's limited intelligence, really, isn't it? It's other people's intelligence.
Oh, absolutely.
Just kind of being packaged together, which is just really useful.
Regurgitated with a little bit extra, like a cherry on the top.
If you're looking for dog-friendly restaurants, it would take you quite a bit of time to sift through different, kind of go through reviews, pick out the keyword. It's great for kind of sifting through that. But as you said, one of them might be wrong. That's the risk that you go into. But it's really good at kind of getting a head start on these things. And I'm going to go back to that point earlier about it being quite polarising. People that kind of think you should use it for everything or you should use it for nothing. And there is that little bit of common sense that needs applying in this equation. Plus, of course, it's ever evolving, isn't it? You know,
Oh,
I dare
absolutely.
say, if someone
Yeah.
listens to this in 2 years,
Yeah.
they'll be laughing because we'll
Yeah.
be so out of
So
date.
out, yeah.
Well, you've mentioned
things will have
policy.
moved so
Yeah,
fast.
and
Yeah,
that's the thing. If you write a policy today
regulation
and regulate, they can't keep track of it, and that's
whatever
probably
else
why we've
comes
not
up.
got laws around it. Even though when you see the fallout of what's happened, there's people that have been committing suicide on the back of it because it's had a chat with ChatGPT, and it's really gone down a rabbit hole, really dark things that have happened. But for you to put as a government or whatever to put regulations in place, those things never happen fast anyway.
No.
So
Right.
to even get that sorted, then to apply it, make sure everybody's keeping to it. How do you even police that? But even then, it's going to be out of date the minute it hits the paper. It's just run. The last 6 months seems to have really. It's almost like AI on turbo boost. I feel like what it was for the first 2 years as people were getting used to it, and then it's just really rocketed in the last.
And it is
6
moving to the
months.
next level.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? It is moving to the next level where it is more intelligent and it is able to make better decisions about things. You can see that next level
Yeah.
coming along, which is going back to my original thoughts on, gung ho. It's about, I think it's about what's the right way to use this as a small business, I suppose. What is not acceptable and what is really acceptable and what is kind of imperative, I suppose, because they're going to have to do it. They have got to grasp it in some way if they want to remain competitive in the future. It will have an impact because even just down to being cost effective, if somebody else can do it in half the time and it's only going to cost half the price and it's still a really good product, then you or service, you're going to lose out to that. So you've got to find your way in it, haven't you? You've got to find your way of using it.
I suppose every business is different though to know what they'll want out of it. So it's a bit like how long is a piece of string, but that. I think for small businesses, procedural things and factual things are probably not going to be as useful with the time it's then going to take to check all the sources, to check that everything's true, than maybe just looking something up on Google. But what it will be good for, as I mentioned earlier, like with the things that you might outsource or just for idea generation and strategy, things like that, the things that you might need mentors for, or you'd have to look at lots of really thick self-development business books and things like that. You can bring the golden nuggets out of one of those books at your fingertips in seconds instead of having to sit there and read through all that information. So the ideas that are out there and the inspiration, the research, the creative element, all that sort of thing can help you as your business grow and move on to the next step, rather than maybe thinking about day-to-day operations. Yes, it will help you absolutely with, say, content creation, things like that, and being able to put small types of process or automation in your business. But I think the opportunity for small businesses is to think, right, what am I not doing? What am I not saying? What am I not providing my clients with that I now could, with an AI tool underpinning that, that extra income stream or that extra service or that extra product? So from a growth element, which perfect for the growth community, I think AI is the real opportunity there for small businesses. I don't think it's too much about obviously the big things that, say, chatbots and things like that bigger or medium-sized businesses might need, because you quite rightly said at the beginning, small businesses, it's a very human to human transactional. It's very sort of people buy into the people they know and trust, and that will actually be a detriment if you put AI into that. So I wouldn't say that should be the first thing they'd look at. Absolutely sort of use your humanness to its effects that you can in a small business, because you can get straight into your customers, but put AI into your customer's brain or have it act as your customer, because we don't know what we don't know. That's the thing. You don't know what your customers might be thinking of you. So get it to do an overview or an audit of your business. Get it to look at your website and think, this is the first time anybody's come across my website. Can you give me feedback on what you would perceive I offer for a business? Because what you think you're saying and what people are hearing or reading could actually be, poles apart, really. So it's that sort of critical friend almost, or that mentor and sounding board that, to me, I think is probably what small businesses could really do with, because sometimes you can't see the wood for the trees when you work on your own, or you only see the same group of people. It's very isolated, or you live in a bubble almost. And AI can give you that, sort of open up the landscape for you to just run with it. So from what to be careful of, we've said already, sort of make sure you absolutely check everything that goes out there. But I think be realistic with it, because you could go too far that way. You could think, oh my God, I can do this with AI. I can be my own legal team. I can be my own marketer. I can be my own strategist. I can be my own business coach. These people that offer these services have experience and knowledge for a reason. And whilst it can help you do basic things, it's not a replacement for actual real life experience, real life qualifications. And I think that's the tipping point almost. But then again,
so don't use ChatGPT to write your employee contract.
No. I'd probably also add in that someone should give it, with the background of legal expertise, to maybe give it a once over as well. But it can maybe help save costs, because instead of asking them to draft it, you could draft it and just ask for a bit of their time to review it, which is probably a cheaper thing to do.
That's a really good point.
So, it's still, if you only sort of look at AI as a legwork tool, I don't really know the better way, or a draft tool, that is what it's meant to be, and that is the right way to use it, rather than having it do everything from A to Z and you don't have any human element in there, or any sort of critical response to...
It's that all or nothing thing again, isn't it? And I mean, what's weird is that, like, testing is not a new concept in business. Like in the past, like people, even like A/B testing for emails and stuff like that, that's been done for many, many years. And yet people still seem to kind of think with AI, it's either it's black or it's white. And I mean, I don't know what you would necessarily say is a good starting point for people. And I guess there's a question there. But when people talk to me about it, I'd say, well, just look at the stuff that you do and do some testing, see whether or not it can help. I quite often say to clients, obviously I do podcasting, and I say, I would never trust AI to edit a podcast episode, because it doesn't have ears. It doesn't feel in the way that a
the
human
nuances
does.
Of it, yeah.
But it's really good for writing the show notes for a podcast episode. Yeah. So once it's edited, you give it a podcast episode and say, I want a 2,000 summary of this episode for my show notes. Brilliant.
Yeah.
And that would take someone half a day to do.
Yeah.
And actually come back with something that's probably not as good. It's really, really great. Here's a lot of information, summarize it.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant at that.
Yeah.
And does it in a way that it sounds great, and it's actually really good at going and finding, right, the guest was from so and so it'll find their website and stick it on there. You've got to check it all, but it's actually pretty good at doing stuff like that. What do you think then is the starting point? And I guess what I'm getting at here is, I think one of the big hurdles for people is fear, and is maybe they don't fully understand it, and therefore, and I'm sure this has been in, once upon a time, someone said to people, "Get rid of your horses and let's have cars," and there have been people going, "Don't know about that. Don't understand that. What's that? What's under that hood engine? I don't understand how that works. I'll stick with my horse."
Yeah,
and that fear is again, it's not a new thing.
No,
but what's the starting point?
Sort of get around that? Yeah,
and I think actually to sort of go alongside that is AI, everyone's talking about it, and everyone's talking about it like they all know what it is. And I suspect quite a lot of people don't really understand what it is.
Yes.
But now it's got a bit embarrassing to ask.
To sort of put your hand up and say that,
to actually say, what is it? And, and then kind of where could I start out on my journey with it?
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of people now feel a bit uneasy even at putting their hand up and saying, I don't know what this is.
I think that probably more what you've said about the application. I mean, on not just AI, but on quite a few subjects. I've probably been to workshops and I've sat for half a day and I've got loads of notes. I've got 3 or 4 pages of notes. Then I come home and I start doing something else and I forget about it until something like that pops up again. And I think probably with AI, it's probably slightly different in that it's so much it's ingrained in everything we do. So there's so many workshops, so many things. But I think really, the difference between going and listening about it and even understanding it to an extent, but there's nothing to replace having a faff. And that's how I learn everything. I have a faff. And if I don't understand it, then I ask someone to help me. If I do understand it, then I can get further and further. But I'm not the sort of person that can read something and it go in. It just isn't my learning style. Everything that I tend to have sort of learnt myself, and it's a very, very small set of skills, but it's still something that until I do it, it doesn't go in.
It's the show me, let me try.
Yeah, and I think probably the downside for some people, maybe more for employees than small businesses, but you're at your job 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, you got family at the weekend. When do you find the time to sit and have a faff?
Yeah.
And I think the difference when I've done AI coaching and training for people is that we've done a practical session. So we've had a chat like this, and we've talked about the limitations, the great things it can do, given examples, but then we've all got our laptops out, we've all sat there, and we've all put the same prompts in so that we can see what would be spat out by ChatGPT, talk about it, look at the slight difference. Even though we've all put the same thing in, it's been slightly different what's come out. And then we've put the next point in, we've put the next prompts in. So we've done a range of tasks with a prompt. So it's the practical element that I think people have enjoyed more because they've had a faff about with it. And then they've wanted to go home and make time to have a go at it. And the headspace, which is, it's not just time, is it? It's being able to concentrate on it when you've got 100 other things to do. So I think that the fear is real for a lot of people. And I think that there's a lot of headlines, probably not so much now because I think maybe the media have realised it really isn't going anywhere, but there was a lot around the environmental effects of AI, around the fact that, it could take people's jobs, it's going to disrupt everything, it's going to make us, almost like slaves to the government, all this sort of thing. You've probably seen all the headlines. And if you haven't used it, how do you know any different? There's no wonder that you might fear something like that. But it is just a tool. I think people make it maybe bigger in their minds than what it is, but it's just a tool, like this microphone's a tool, a laptop's a tool. It's not really something, we're not talking Terminator times. We're not going to have Arnie come through the door.
Everyone start thinking.
Yeah, if you've not used it, I can understand that fear can get bigger and bigger and bigger. But when you actually use it, and you don't need to use it on a business thing, could use it on a personal note. So you could just open up ChatGPT, start your account, say something like, I've got these 3 or 4 ingredients in my fridge and my cupboard, what can I make for tea? And just have a faff and play about with something harmless and, innocuous as that, and then ask it another question to do with another part of your life. Then you might ask a question to do with your job, and it's just playing. I can't think of another way really at the very outset. Forget about the whole technical element. Just have a go. And once you pass that, you'll probably be driven to think, oh, what else can I ask it? What else can I do? Because it does get exciting. It is a fantastic tool without a doubt.
You touched a little bit there, and I wasn't so much going to ask about kind of like the environmental concerns that go alongside it. I think we are heading for an issue there, aren't we, that needs resolving, but it is an overall data issue rather than specifically AI. But in terms of like the other concerns that people have, one I think is about this slight uncomfortableness at just how much data we are giving.
Yeah.
This thing about ourselves, and how at some point in the future can that become something that is weaponized in one way or another, because we're giving away quite a lot of stuff about ourselves. There was a craze not long ago, wasn't there, for people to make those
the toys,
the toy things,
yeah,
and you'd have to tell it like your favorite this, your favorite that, your favorite other. And once upon a time I'm thinking, where did you used to see those things where it says what was your favorite subject? And I'm like, they're password hints, aren't they? If you password recovery tools used to be, what was the name of your first pet? Where's your favourite place to go on holiday?
Exactly. Yeah, where you born.
Now name this toy your mother's maiden name,
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but you can see how some people are starting
absolutely.
to join
and the right, to be fair.
They start thinking, actually, we do probably just need to be aware of that. So where do you stand on those kind of concerns?
I feel that it's very valid. I absolutely would, I would have probably come on to that later about the, the data privacy, again, with the laws and how much these big companies like OpenAI and, Amazon, and how much are they actually going against it. And I think it's worth remembering that these huge companies don't really give a hoot about the person using it. It is very much a commercial tool in that sense, right? When you're right up at the top of this tree. So there isn't actually a lot of regulation around it or the data checking. That's why there's so much bias in it, because they are supposed to have bias checkers working on it, and that is a task that's seen to be done rather than actually having any effect. So the bias that can affect us on a day-to-day basis is in there. From a privacy point of view, I would never suggest to anybody putting anything in it that's client identifiable. If it's something that you can put a hypothetical scenario into it and get a good enough response without needing to have the actual specific details in. So I would absolutely say this is part of the responsible use to sort of check how and what you're putting into that. You can have, such as the paid version of certain tools that can stop the sharing element, so the data doesn't necessarily go onto the internet for, well, not the internet, but for sharing and generative training on the tool. But the data still sits on their servers for a certain amount of time, which would actually break a lot of the GDPR policies that people have now. So it's a very grey area. And to be honest, if you were to sit and look at all the court cases for such as copyright and for privacy and things like that that are going through the courts, especially in America as well as here, thousands of court cases where, you know, the people's data or IP or, you know, their original ideas, things like that. It's being labelled by the people who are making money out of it as like, oh, that's progress. That's just, you've just got to accept it and move on. And it's not right. But it's also, how do you even start tackling that? And our legal system is there, but how effective is that? And there's sort of a realistic view versus actually what's ethical and morally right. But what I'm trying to say is the people at the top aren't ethically and morally right. So that's what you're fighting against. So whilst we can protect ourselves as much as we can, that is a really big concern to a certain extent, but you can minimise that. And also there's so many other ways that they're trying to get the data off you. You know, your shopping rewards card. You know, there's your data is out there anyway. Yeah. But for your client's data to be out there that's the bigger risk. You know, your data, you can manage it to a certain extent. You know, when signing up to things, you know, newsletters and all sorts, that you're giving your data out. Even your Alexa or your phone listening to you will be gathering data. For what purpose and how long it keeps it, I don't know. But it's got to be listening to you all the time to know when it's got to do. It's got to do.
I find it really unnerving.
It is a bit. There is
random,
like
boarding your lot.
And then you go on Facebook and it's the first thing that you see, and it's so these things are there already. And if we had, we probably could have an hour's talk literally just on the darkness of our commercial, you know, the capitalist society that we live in, and how much we are commercial products ourselves. We are walking data sets that these companies will pay to get our data to sell to us, and you only have to go back 20 years. It wouldn't have been anything like it is now. And that's probably going to get worse as well. And AI is only speeding that up rather than being the actual instigator of it. It's always happened, and it's not right. I hate to be sort of like, but what do? You know, there are ways. And common sense again. Do as much as you can to protect yourself. So always be generic with what you put in. Turn sharing off if you're able to. Obviously, you know, with the sort of tools and who you share it with and all this sort of stuff, it's probably things that with the cybersecurity knowledge of any sort, you would be doing these types of things anyway. But just as AI is going to make us better, it's going to make scammers and people who want to use it for nefarious reasons, it's going to make them more slick and better as well. It's bound to do. Yeah. So it could be that there are new hacks and new scams that we're not even aware of yet, that AI has helped to produce. And that's, again, not the tool's fault, it's the human behind it, but that's the world we live in. I really would love to have a really nice utopian sort of answer to that, but yeah, it's a case of you're probably just going to have to protect yourself as much as you can, because the people who should be protecting us and the laws that they should abide by, not so much.
I've switched this off now, but I used to be able to, when I ring my bank, once upon a time, you'd have to, I don't know, you'd press like a number or something, wouldn't you? And then you'd have to answer certain questions, like security questions or something. And they changed it so it was like voice recognition. So it just knows that it's you. But now voice cloning has become very commonplace and very easy. And that when you say it like that, voice cloning, it sounds quite sinister. But you know, there's now tools whereby, you know, if you record a podcast episode in English, it will auto translate it into Spanish, and so you can have a Spanish version of your podcast that says all the same stuff. Still sounds quite conversational, even in your tone of voice, and you kind of think, well, that's really useful. At the same time, like you think, well, there's not you can see the connection there where people could be using that to you know, try and get into different. And I know that, you know, the technology is pretty secure, but we never quite know what's around the corner. On that note, where do you think this is going then? So, you know, we kind of said if in 2 years someone listens to this podcast, they'd probably have a couple of giggles about just how out of date we already are.
Put into the test now.
Where do you think this is ultimately going to go?
I mean, it's obviously starting to disrupt things. So I do think it'll disrupt areas that perhaps we're not used to having disrupted. So I think AI will actually disrupt the education system quite well. And it's overdue. I think it will absolutely change the way that we assess children, how they learn things. I think it's a tool that could really put us up the league tables for sort of education in our country. But it needs open-minded people at the top to do that, and all the protections in place that we've talked about. But I think that is the place, that and healthcare. There's places, like third world countries that people might say, oh, AI creates a two-tier system where the rich can afford to have healthcare that's underpinned by AI so they can get better solutions and treatments because they can afford to pay for the absolute top dollar stuff that's being developed now with the use of AI. But they probably, again, don't look at the real world view that in third world countries, AI is being introduced, but it's not a case of like AI is second rate for them. They wouldn't have had any healthcare at all. So it's not it's an apples and oranges comparison. They are using AI. They're even scanning retinas in some countries, and they can see from that what diseases or what ailments they've got from a retina scan. So this is absolutely revolutionising other countries. So I feel that there's a lot of underdeveloped areas that will be developed with AI. Where we are in the Western world, I think it'll actually sort of show us it'll hold some mirrors up to some companies, because I've seen them go absolutely rocket fast with AI, and they're not looking at the human element, they're not looking at the impact on their customers, they're not looking at their safety of the data that they've got. They are just looking at it, we can save pounds, we can save so much money, we can make so much money because we can deal with twice as much work. And they're just racing to the bottom in a way, because they're not actually innovating or inventing. They're cutting.
Yeah, they're just using
replacing it, using it as a cost-saving thing. And I actually think that it'll only take one human somewhere down that chain to make a cock-up of sorts, and then their reputation will be absolutely in smithereens. And I think that point, when it's an absolute household name brand, will have people thinking, oh, maybe we might not necessarily take a step back, but just let's reevaluate how we're using AI and not just seeing all the benefits and the shiny tools, because we've already talked today about the pros and cons of a lot of different things about it. But the bigger companies, medium to bigger companies, seem to be absolutely hell-bent on being the first at doing this. They want to create this AI-powered element, or that they're just getting almost like dazzled by the technology without looking at the real world application of it.
I actually saw something really horrific the other day. I'm not going to mention the exact company, but let's just say that they're a very large retail organisation, who recently had their own issues with cybersecurity issues. They were recruiting their festive staff. I'm guessing they're recruiting their staff in general using AI.
Yeah.
So it was a form. And
there's a huge amount of
person I know in particular she's can't get a job in the field she wants to be in the moment because there's a bit of a shortage there. And she thought, well, I'll go and get a job there. She's a very proficient person, used to having a lot of authority in what she does and all the rest of it. And this AI basically said, you're not the right kind of person. You're a kind of a job's worth kind of person. You can't think on the feet. That's basically essentially, didn't quite say those words, but that's essentially what it said. And so, this large retail organisation just missed out on somebody who would have absolutely smashed doing that job.
That's not a human assessing things. It's
in AI at the end. Corners.
And the talk about AI juries and AI judges. And just as you've said, it's great in one way. I can see some pluses, because you won't get the human bias, the human interference, the corruption, all this sort of thing. It can reduce a lot of things that humans are at fault for. But the other part, that lady that you've said in your example, how do you argue against a machine? How do you say, actually, I'm going to be one of the best employees you've taken on in the last 5 years? You can appeal and appease and give context and have a back and forth and reason with the human. Exactly. But when you've got AI at that coalface, the computer says no. I mean, we used to laugh at Little Britain. The computer says no. But the computer as an end point doesn't work. We are human social animals, and companies putting so much money into, because of the cost savings, into the AI and the as I say, chatbots, things like that. Yes, it can help filter. It has its pluses, but not at the expense of like any human touch at all. And I don't know about you. I said recently about it's not just one company. There's so many things lately that I've had to reapply for this, or I've had to renew my driving license, I had to renew my passport, I had to do this, I had to do that, and it were like the hoops I had to go through.
Yeah.
Because it was a computer and this wasn't right and that wasn't right. And I just wanted to say, if I was just going into somewhere and giving it to a person, I could have dealt with this in half an hour, but it took probably 2 or 3 hours of my time to go back and forth over different days, answering this email, going on this portal, doing this. And technology hasn't necessarily saved a lot of time.
No, in fact, it overcomplicates things.
It does.
We actually had a whole
Absolutely.
conversation this morning about boilers on that exact topic, about overcomplicating things. It does overcomplicate. And I think actually there's a really good message coming out of here before we kind of move on to talking about, some practical application for small business. I think, the one thing, whether you listen to this now or you listen to it in 2 years' time, and yes, okay, some of what we're talking about might, technically be out of date, but I don't think this message will be out of date. That if you are a small business, you need to find that happy balance of using AI to give you competitive advantage, to allow you to be efficient, to give you, if you are a lifestyle ambitious business that wants to grow but still doesn't want to work themselves into the floor, then there will be, and there is now, some amazing tools to support that. But you lose the human interaction at your detriment, because if people struggle to deal with you, if they are put off by the computer saying no, and there's no interaction, and you've lost a two-way conversation between you and what your customers need solving, then any competitive advantage that you are gaining from the efficiency side of things, you're going to lose completely, because the human element won't be there. And I think it's about, I think it's like anything, you can have a website, going back to the old days when we said, should we get a website? You can have a website, but you still got to have communication with your customers. You've still got to be able to figure out what's going wrong with them so you can solve more of their problems and sell them more stuff. And you've still got to be able to deal with their issues and the challenges so that they get a great experience of you, so they want to come back and buy more from you. If you can't do that, you are going to lose out to somebody who can. And ultimately, the cost, particularly in small businesses, I would say, the consumer slightly different, but in business to business, it's not always about the cost.
Yeah.
And actually, people are willing to pay a bit more
for that personal,
to get the quality of experience that they want and that they need, because ultimately the efficiency of how fast it can be done actually gets outweighed by the fact that the quality of what you end up at the end is not there. So I think ultimately that is the commonsensical balance that we started out at the beginning, really, isn't it?
I think the biggest fear for me is sort of, again, how AI is perceived, and that if AI starts replacing people in businesses, what we need to remember is that long term, short term, it's great. It's great for the bottom line. If you've got an efficiency, it's fine. It looks good on paper. But if we do go 5 years down the line and we've got so many AI people, almost like these AI entities that would have been a human in the past, AI is never going to pay tax. AI doesn't contribute to society. AI isn't going to help anybody.
No.
What's the benefit of having AI taking all our jobs or taking us out of our roles? Because AI is not a consumer. So who are you going to sell to when you've got everybody replaced in every company? Who's your customers going to be? We're not going to have any money. We're not going to have any jobs. We're not going to be hit. It's inconceivable to think that AI can replace humans.
Everything.
It's there to underpin humans, to make us better. If we're a better creative and we're earning more money ourselves, we can spend more money. Why do people not see this? It's really, efficiencies for businesses. It's great on your bottom line and it's great internally, but think about your customers and think about what you're actually working towards. You're squeezing people out of the equation, not just on one side of the coin, on the other side as well.
That's a really interesting point, actually. Yeah. So, okay, coming back to our small businesses, we have kind of our business owner called Steve that we talk about a lot in our podcast. So if Steve's kind of, Steve is generally, we consider him to be about 18 months into his business usually. If Steve's thinking about implementing AI, what would be almost his first ports of call that he would start out with AI? What are the things that he could do to, find that efficiency or find that joy in his business or whatever it is? What would you recommend as a starting point?
So I'd do almost like a spot check of where he is at the moment. So that doesn't, so ask AI, as I mentioned earlier, just to get an overview of what your website looks like. Is it actually communicating what you want it to communicate? But take it another step further and do that assessment. Just as you would if a business mentor, one of the first things they'd have you do is a SWOT analysis. But get the AI to do a SWOT analysis, but on your competitors. And don't just say, what are my competitors doing that I could maybe copy? Ask it, what are my competitors not doing? Because that's an opportunity for you. What sort of, if you get it to assess everything your customer's thinking, everything that your competitors are doing right or wrongly, if you get it to assess what you're doing and whether you're on the right lines to what you're trying to achieve. So as this sort of almost like the Wizard of Oz, this almighty mirror that's being held up to all your thoughts about where you can take your business next, or not even if you're looking at growth, just am I in the right place? Am I saying the right things? Am I doing the right things? Is my website repeating what I want it to repeat? Is it actually communicating that to my customers? Is it actually sounding to the customer that I'm solving their problem? Does it understand my customer? All these things. Because you are so close within the business, sometimes you can't see what's in their side of the fence. You can't look at your business. You're not detached enough. You're not objective enough. Yeah. But AI can do that. So I think that's a really good first starting point to say, where am I now? Let's just take that.
What tool would you use for that?
You see, this is where I'm not a technical person. I'm very much about, as I say, the human element, the coaching skills. They're the bits that I bring to a company. I'm not a technical person at all. And I've faffed with it. I've done a few different tools, but I still always go back to ChatGPT. Yeah. It does everything I need to do, so I don't need to. I'm lazy as well. I don't need to go and find this fabulous shiny ball, that AI tool that's just come out, because 95% of the time, ChatGPT does everything I personally need it to do.
It's a good all-rounder.
It is.
Yeah, I think there are a few others that people kind of use for, some of them are really good for research. And obviously, your co-pilots and those sorts of things are coming on. I think if you're using Microsoft stuff, it's becoming more and more integral to a lot of stuff. So
it's
people who are very
but I've never
Microsofty, it does that. There's quite a lot going on in that space. But I think you've got to play, like you said, play around with some tools, find the one you like, and use that one. Really,
it's never understood what I've asked it, and I don't know if but if I put the same prompts into ChatGPT, it knows straight away. So I don't know if I don't know. I've just never got on with it. But the benefit of Copilot, and I absolutely understand why businesses would want their employees to use it, is because it doesn't share information.
Right.
That's a huge plus from the point of mitigating risk from an employer's point of view. So I get why they would want you to use it as an employee. But personally, I just...
I think
creature habit.
I think the better version of it is an upgrade currently, I think, on Microsoft. So I think if you've upgraded and you've got the license for it, then it probably makes sense internally.
I should maybe have another go, to be honest. Should give it another chance.
I think it's more of a recent development though.
Right.
So and I think it, like I say, it depends on what you use and what you want, what licenses you've already got. You don't want to end up with millions of licenses to millions of things that you're not using. So find a tool. And ChatGPT seems to be a really good entry level, but also, depending on
if you need to take it that more specific or niche.
And I'm assuming that, if you're going to use ChatGPT regularly, that it's worth paying for it rather than using the free version.
Yeah, I mean, again, the free version has come on a lot since when it was first put out there. It was quite limiting because it wasn't sort of live and it didn't really, it had very out-of-date information. But I think all that's been changed now. I do pay for it just because I enjoy the extra elements. There are so many little widget type things, GPTs, that are within ChatGPT, if you pay for the elements, that are useful. And again, these are sort of the little tiny things that could be specific to businesses or sectors and do specific jobs that someone's developed because it's an open source platform in the first place. So somebody has probably done that job and thought, oh, this could be AI'd or, overhauled in some way where AI is doing the legwork. And they've brought this into a little sort of platform of its own in this widget. Yeah. That's what I call them. I know they're called GPTs, but that's the best way I can think of it. Yeah, so they're all pluses. I use DALL-E quite a lot, which is free as such, or it's integrated into the paid for version. So that's images. So using a ChatGPT prompt, but to ask it to create an image of sorts. And I'm not very visual, so it helps me to use something as easy as that.
I use a really cute little thing called napkin.ai.
I've not heard of that.
And it's brilliant for like creating, when you just need like little diagrams or, like little graphs or things. It's brilliant. It's so good at that. It's just really brilliant.
There's thousands. There's so many that I've never heard of, and I'm not saying I would have heard of them, but it's
So doing the marketing intelligence then is a really good starting point. Is there anything else that you would recommend for small businesses to sort of go and start out with?
I think probably any decisions that they make, they can use ChatGPT as sort of a devil's advocate to make sure if you are making a new income stream, or you're wanting to reach into a new audience, you might have some assumptions about it, or you might be making a decision that could really have an effect on your business 6 months down the line. You might be taking a new loan out, a business loan or something like that. So it's probably always worth running it through ChatGPT and just exploring the hypotheses around it. Also, it's really good at hypothesizing and just saying what would be the worst case scenario if I did this, what would be the benefits or pros and cons if I did this. Because sometimes, and I'm very impulsive, I'm not somebody that sits there and researches everything. I'm very always like do it, and then if it don't work, it's tough for me type of thing. But I know it's not a good thing. This is not a good trait to have, but you can't help how your mind works. But it is great to help you make informed decisions. And when you're putting together, say a business plan for somebody, and you're wanting to, again, it's that second pairs of eyes, that critical friend. It just can help you feel more confident in your decision making. It's really good at that.
And what about if someone's looking to add like you said earlier, that you can use AI to kind of replace outsourcing?
Yeah.
How would, because I'm guessing that's probably quite a big thing for a lot of small businesses.
Probably so, yeah.
It's quite expensive.
Yeah, content creation, marketing, anything like that. So, you might have someone that's, you see, this sounds really awful because if you're doing it yourself, you could be in potentially putting someone else out of work or out of a job as such. But again, it's for a generic basic starting point to do things through AI. If you're wanting something that's maybe campaign specific and you're wanting marketing to go a bit deeper, then yes, still go and ask for the expert. Still pay. You get what you pay for. If you're doing it free, you're only going to get maybe the generic surface level stuff. But sometimes that's okay. I think that's the thing. That's where it's saving you money. Because if you're paying someone that's expensive to do everything for you, some of the stuff, if you can do it yourself, is like we mentioned in that other example, you can bring the cost down maybe. And then you can also feel more informed about where you want to take it, what messages you want to put out there, where you want to take your business, what you want to communicate. So yeah, you don't necessarily need to always pay a lot of expense out for some tools. So content creation is one of the things that AI I think does best. It's great for sounding board, idea inspiration. I'm somebody that hates to, if I came and looked at a blank piece of paper, it would probably stay like that till dinner time. But once there's something on there, I can fly with it. I'm an editor, so that's the sort of thing. I don't work from scratch. I work when there's something there and I tweak it and make it better.
So actually, I've been a copywriter since Dot, but I do use ChatGPT because sometimes I just find that if I'm on the hoof and I'm doing things, it just gets my grey matter going. It'll just get me something to kind of go and
work with.
When I've got 20 things on my mind.
And that's the best thing for it. I think that's where it helps you compartmentalise. It helps cut down the time that you need to go forth and do whatever you need to do. And it's just cuts nice little corners that you can control, that you can make bespoke to you. So I think as a small business owner, it's like having your own virtual assistant that's free in the corner. And if you imagine it's your virtual assistant, I couldn't say to you, Nicky, go write me a blog. First thing you say is, well, on what? Who's going to read it? How long? What are you wanting to achieve? You just put all those same things into AI, and that's what's going to come out with a better response, something that's then you can just tweak and put out there once you've humanised it. But if you just say anything generic, like do this, do that, without any context, just like with a human, it's just going to give you generic stuff back. So you will get better at how you put a prompt together the more you use it. I wouldn't say that's something that will necessarily come to you straight away, but without having a play or a faff, like we said before, how do you get to that point? You've just got to jump in.
Yeah, absolutely. We could talk about this all day.
We could.
We have run out of time.
So shall we move to homework then?
I've covered some of them. But
I'll
try.
Now let's reiterate what, let's set some practical homework for these guys. So I think what you said at the beginning is actually go and play.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that probably should be the first tip. It's not going to come to you. It's not going to make the time, because if you're not using it now, you obviously have no need to use it. It's almost like you've got to discover how and what it can do for you. But set aside one evening or an hour on a weekend and just make your account on ChatGPT, and as I say, do some really simple prompts with it and just build on that. But you are going to have to make it a habit first of all, because at the moment, if you've not used it, it might feel like an extra thing. But the premise after a certain time is that it'll save you time, but you've got to make that time to save the time. Yeah. So again, that'll make sense to you. You'll know exactly what I mean, but you've got to form the habit. So to someone who's not used it before, yes, make the time in the very short term, but the more you see what it can do and the more you can apply it to the things that take a lot of time for you in your either personal life or business life now, the more you'll see how much time it can save.
I think that's a really good point, actually.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah,
well said.
Excellent. Well, that has gone down a number of rabbit holes, and but I think a really useful conversation, actually. So thank you very much.
No, thank you for having me. It's been lovely.
Well, thank you for your attendance today. I hope you've learned something new. Every day is a business school day, after all. If you'd like to contact us or perhaps put yourself forward as a future guest, find either Nicky or myself on LinkedIn, or you can drop us a line using the links in the show notes. Right, school is out. Please wait for the bell before you leave.